Well, welcome to our Module 2 live session. And it is 6:30 Central Standard Time, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. I realize there might be some people that are still coming in, but I see that Kayla's online, and I just want to make sure to respect everyone's time who is here on time. So as I get started, Kayla, can you hear me okay? And can you see the PowerPoint okay?
Yes.
All right, looks like I'm in good shape. So, just unmute it at any time that you want to participate in the discussion, and then unmute it. Just cuts down on background noise. So yeah. Tonight's live Model 2 live session kind of looks like this of what we're doing tonight. We'll be having introductions, live classroom expectations, important reminders, check-ins, week 1 takeaways, field experience reports, the planning cycle, observation, recording methods, writing learning objectives, and the comprehensive lesson plan. And then if it's just me and you, Kayla, if you have a chance after every slide, if you have any questions, you could just let me know. And if you are viewing this online, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me as well. So, as most of you guys know, my name is Mike Hager, and I currently reside in Denver metro area. I have my master's degree in early childhood education and work as an administrator for the Head Start program. If time and money was no object, I would love to travel to Brazil. My mom is from Brazil, and she talks about what a beautiful country it is. I would especially like to go to the beaches. He always tells me how gorgeous the beaches are. So now I just want to invite you and to share a little bit about yourself, where you're from, the type of program you are in, and if money and time was no object, what would be your favorite place to travel to? And if you are viewing this online, please answer that question in discussion in a paragraph form.
All right. Well, my name is Kayla. I live in Mandan, North Dakota, and I work at a daycare over in Bismarck called Perfect Start. I work with the toddlers, so that's ages 18 months to about 3. And then if money and time were no object, I guess I would really want to go to New York.
Nice. Well, welcome, Kayla, and thank you for sharing. Yeah, New York, I haven't been there at all. So that would be a really fun place to travel to as well. Having a family and everything, it might not be the easiest. So, but it would be definitely a cool experience to go to visit. So moving right along, we'll talk a little bit about the live classroom session expectations. This course will have 2 live classroom sessions that I will lead to expand on the current module topics. These sessions are offered in Module 2 and Module 5. The next live session will be October 29th, which is another Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Basically, the purpose of the live classroom session is to engage with myself and your peers about the course and different concepts to further your learning. Interactive classroom sessions encourage open dialogue, and questions are encouraged. If you cannot attend the live classroom session, it will be posted the next day, and then you would have to complete the live session quiz and answer the questions that I asked the class during the presentation in order to receive full credit. So I always say it's a lot easier just to be on here and be present. Just a lot easier because a lot of the times it's a lot of information, and one of my main goals is to see you guys succeed. So I really want to be intentional about what you guys are learning and how you guys are learning it. So it looks like we have another person online. Hi, Marcial. How are you? And if I'm saying it wrong, please correct me. Is it Marisol or Marisol? Oh, I cannot hear you. Hello? I could barely hear you. Well, welcome anyways to the course in the live classroom session. I'm going to continue on. Looks like you might have some audio problems, Marcial. Yeah, I think you are having some troubles with your mic. Maybe turn up the volume so you can hear. I don't know if you could hear me, but I can't. I know I can't hear you on my end. All right. I'm going to continue on. So important reminders. So this course does go by pretty quick. So I just want you guys to make sure to look closely to the course calendar for due dates. I don't know if you guys are in the CVE classes, but where you have multiple attempts on different assignments, this is a little bit different. There are due dates, and I don't want to deduct late points for any assignments, but as a college policy, you will get a 10% deduction on any assignment that is late. This does apply to discussion posts as well. Assignments are due by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time every Sunday. Kayla, can you not hear me? I'm sorry. I just saw a chat pop up that said you cannot hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh. Okay. Perfect. That's great. That's all I wanted to know. All right. So yeah, this applies to discussion posts as well. So any assignments that are due at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time every Sunday. Initial discussion posts are due tonight, every Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time, and then for the responses to peers or myself, you have to respond by Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're full credit in the discussions. Respond to at least one peer as well as any questions I may ask you. You are encouraged to respond to more than one peer and the questions other peers ask you as well to expand your learning. You can refer to the calendar for Module 6 assignments and discussions as they are different. Everything is due by the last day of class, which is Tuesday, November 5th. And then I cannot accept any late work to be after this date for any reason. So just make sure that you guys are really proactive at getting your stuff in and making sure that you guys are looking at the course calendar to see when those due dates are. Checking in. So how are things going so far? And is there any new information you took away from Module 1? Are you guys able to navigate through the Blackboard class? I know maybe some of you, this might not be the first class that you guys are taking. So yeah, is there any other barriers that might be preventing you from completing the field experience? I'd like to hear from you. How are things going?
Going good for me so far.
Easy to navigate everything?
Yep.
So is this your first course with Rasmus and Kayla, or have you been doing other classes?
This is my third class.
Nice. So it gets a little bit easier. That's great. Marisol, can you hear me? And if you could hear me, how are things going for you? Marisol's typing in the chat. She said everything is going good. So, you know, hearing and seeing that everything is going good, you know, just making sure that you guys stay on top of everything. And if you have questions, please ask. Don't let things wait until the last second and then start asking them. So yeah, be proactive instead of reactive. Field experience report. So each module field experience report will prompt you to focus on key areas of practice. You will really want to be sure to examine it early in the module to ensure you know what to focus on for your upcoming field experiences. Then at the end of the module, you will report on how many field experience hours you completed along with a reflection on your experience. An overview of each module key area of practice can be found on this chart below. Reflection by its very nature is a very personal experience. As such, there are no right or wrong answers. It is the habit of reflecting upon your effectiveness as an educator that is the most important, and consequently, my feedback may be brief. So, you know, in your written responses, make sure to have complete sentences as well as proper punctuation and grammar. So making sure that you are, like I said, proactive in making sure that you look at each and respond to them, you know, personally and on how you think. The planning cycle. So I'd like to dig into some information about the planning cycle and some of the material. So, you know, the very first thing before we plan with the planning cycle is you need to identify the subject of who you're planning for. Before planning any curriculum, really, you know, important to identify who you're planning for, and some of the things that you should consider when you choose a subject is, what do I know about the child's development progress, areas of growth, home life, and interest? And what do I want the child to do or learn as a result of the lesson? And we will be getting a little bit more into detail along with the comprehensive assignment that you're going to have to do this week. So I will basically show you what it should look like and something for your guys' reference. But, you know, it's really important to understand, you know, these questions so you can set attainable outcomes for the child as you develop your lesson plans. So identifying is a really big step of who you're going to identify for and what do you want to get out of it and what do you want the child to learn in the result of it. That's the biggest thing with, I feel like, as when you lesson plan, is to have those questions come to mind. The next thing is the plan, planning. So now that you've identified that the subject with some background information about child's development, progress, home life, interests, so on, the planning can begin. Planning should include aspects as materials needed, step-by-step instructions, transition and support strategies, and environmental considerations. Writing out a plan is a pretty good way how you can see it come to life and how it will come together. Then the next thing would be implementing your plan. So implementing your plan will only be effective if the child is actively engaged with your plan. And that's why it's really important to find what the child's interests are, and making sure that if they are in an interest area or a free choice time is a great place for them to implement your plan, because it'll give you opportunities for the child to investigate and discover new skills and understandings, and they will be more actively engaged with it. The next thing would be observing. So being really cognizant while each activity unfolds is really imperative of the rest of the cycle. We have to question as professionals what is working, what is not working, what learning is taking place now, and how do I know? During your observing time, you should be taking a lot of notes of your observations. There are different ways of taking observations depending on what you're looking for in the behavior of the child, and we'll discuss that on another slide a little bit later. The next thing is adjusting and differentiating in the planning cycle. So each lesson can expand growth as educators. One thing we really need to do is reflect on how we can continue to meet the individual learning and development needs of the child. How can we adapt the lesson to ensure you accommodate diverse learners? And then finally, what are the next steps we can bridge the lesson authentically into the child's home and community? As we know, that learning process doesn't end at school, and it's our job to inform the parents and guardians of these children what we are doing so we can share that information with the parents at home. This does help the child master the outcome when there is dual support, and it also builds the child's strengths so they can scaffold their learning, which in turn also promotes closing that achievement gap. The next couple of things, assessing and repeating. So assessing, basically, you want to complete the planning, you must reflect on the lesson's effectiveness. First, you want to ask the question, were the learning outcomes met, and how do we know? What does the child know now, and what are the next steps in the child's development and learning goals? So that's the two questions you really want to ask yourself. Did they meet the goal, and how do we know, and what's the next steps? And then the very last thing is repeating the cycle. So basically, you want to reflect on seeing what you could have changed so the lesson could have been more maybe effective. Maybe you didn't gather enough information on the child, like the interests and family and lifestyle. Really important to get as much information as you can to meet those outcomes that are attainable for the child. One of the questions I will ask now is, you currently use a planning cycle as an ongoing process, and how do you think that will affect your teaching practices? Maybe you didn't even know that you were using it, and maybe you're using parts of it. So yeah, I just want you guys to share, and if you're viewing this online, please answer that in paragraph format. You currently use the planning cycle as an ongoing process, and how do you think it will affect your teaching practices? So Kayla and Marisol, I'd like to hear from you guys since you guys are online.
I guess the only one that I really know I use is the observing part.
What do you observe?
Just like the different like ways that the children are learning. Like I have some that are like, well, they're all two right now, but they're like some are just turning two, and some have been two for a few months. And the ones that have been two, they can count to 10, whereas the other ones aren't quite there yet.
Nice.
Or like they can say their ABCs.
And do you do pretty much observations daily?
Yeah.
How many do you have in your class?
10.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of toddlers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thanks for sharing, Kayla. Do you, having said that and everything, there are different, and we'll get to it on the next slide, but there are different ways of observing children and behaviors. What I'll talk about on the next slide, which is really actually fascinating, that you probably know that you probably do some of these things. You probably plan to, and you probably identify to, and you probably just don't know it. But when you see it in front of you, you're just like, oh yeah, I do that. Well, thank you for sharing. So yeah, if you're viewing this online, please make sure to answer the question below. Also, talking about planning and observing and different things for observing. Like Kayla mentioned, as teachers, we always want to observe, and there are different ways to observe. So that is kind of the next thing that I'm going to lead myself into is methods of recording observations. So there are many different ways to observe observations. I'm going to talk about running records, anecdotal records, checklist development checklists, rating skills, and time and event sampling. Basically, we'll start with running records. Basically, they're a detailed narrative account of behaviors or events written sequentially as an incident occurs. Basically, it's just a play-by-play of the behavior and events as it is happening. An anecdotal record is more like a short story that the educators use to record a significant incident that has observed. Can be written down after the behavior has taken place. A lot of those are, accidents. People use accidents reports for that. Some might use running records for a play-by-play. So basically, one's a play-by-play, the other one is more of a summary of what happened. Then you have the checklist. Checklists are a formal form of assessment that allows the educator to notate the presence or absence of some criteria with no details or events. Basically, I'm sure a lot of you guys use checklists in your centers or in your classrooms for different things. I know we have a daily health checklist. Basically, it just indicates if a child is bruised in the morning, if a child is sneezing, if they have bad hygiene or anything to that extent. Stuff that we record on a checklist. Oftentimes we don't see too many children with these things, but it is a checklist that we use in our program to identify some of the things for some of the characteristics of the children that come into our classroom in the morning. The other thing is the developmental checklists, and they're assessment tools that list a series of criteria to indicate a presence or an absence of specific behaviors representative of the children's development. Basically, these are different, like, we talk about early learning standards. Basically, it could be a development checklist. Can little Johnny count to 3? Like Kayla said, can he count to 10? Does he know his ABCs? How do we know that? So basically, having a developmental checklist that focuses on cognitively and emotionally and socially different things to that extent. And the last couple things are the rating scale. Basically, that's just a checklist that has been included for various levels of quality. In our state, in Colorado, early childhood programs use Colorado Shines as a rating scale. Basically, it's a rating scale that demonstrates quality of early learning program or center. The higher the rating, the more money companies can charge for profit to enroll their child into a particular program. And then the last two are time and event samplings. Basically, time sampling focuses on problem behaviors to see how often they occur. Observers usually have a set time when they observe the behavior and can check how often the behavior occurs. The event sampling is usually just a series of short observations to confirm the child's behavior pattern is occurring throughout the day. Basically, you know, we just want to make sure with event sampling that the behavior pattern, we just want evidence of it that it is occurring, not at just a specific time, but throughout the course of the whole day. So having said all that, you know, it's a lot of information. Which of the observational approaches and documentation methods do you think you'll use will be most useful to you, and why? And if you're viewing this online, that is another question to please answer in paragraph format. I know when I was a teacher, I think I have used all of these, except, well, no, I've used all of them, I think, at one point or another in time when I was teaching. So yeah, I want to hear from you guys.
I guess that I would probably use the developmental checklist.
And what do you use that for, Kayla?
Well, just like, you know, like I said, with like their ABCs or like counting, if they can hold a pen, like a crayon to color or like a marker, and kind of just like where they are along that line.
Nice. Do you have your own do you guys have your own program checklist, or is it something that you use?
We have like a daily sheet where we just like fill out for the parents saying like how they felt, if they went outside, if we sang songs, like did a project or sensory play, if we read stories, and then it like you have to, and then we list like what they had for breakfast, lunch, and snack, and then like their diaper changes, and then we have like a little section that we can like write notes. But as far as like a checklist or anything, we don't really have that. But that might be something that I would like bring up to my boss or the program supervisor and see if that's something that she thinks would be a good thing for them. Just so like if parents ask, then we know, as opposed to being like, I don't really know.
Sure. It's always good to be proactive. And does your director work with you pretty hands-on?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, she works in like the preschool, so she works with like, you know, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. So she doesn't really know the things that like happen like all day in our room. So it might even help her to see like the checklist to be like, oh, well, this one can do this, but this one can't do this. Maybe we should work on this more, or, you know.
Sure, that's a good idea. Awesome. Have you ever used a running record form or anecdotal record?
Well, we have like the incident reports that you have to fill out for like the parents to sign, but
Sure.
I guess I personally haven't like used either one of them a lot. Just the incident form.
Yeah, and that kind of, I always feel like an incident report is kind of a short summary of what happened on the playground. I mean, um, you know, running record form too. I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand. You know, little Johnny fell and scraped his left knee at 9:32. Ice pack bandage provided to little Johnny. Parent called at 9:35. You know, I think running record form, you know, could look at different ways when it's like incident forms, you know, too, depending on the situation of the incident and if you saw the incident or if you don't know how the incident happened, you know. You have anything else to share, Kayla?
No.
All right. Moving on. So yeah, if you're viewing that, please write that in paragraph form. So in one of this week's assignments, you guys are supposed to come up with a comprehensive lesson plan where all learning objectives must be SMART goals or objectives. And so what are the SMART goal objectives and how do we include this in our comprehensive lesson assignment? First of all, let's review what the characteristics are of the SMART goal objectives. So we want to make sure it's specific. And you'll see an example of my comprehensive lesson plan after this slide. Basically, you want the goals to meet the needs of the children while upholding your program and early learning standards. Do you know exactly what you want to accomplish with all the details? And goals must be well defined. So what does that look like? You want to be specific. So in my example of a comprehensive lesson plan, I will show you of what that looks like being specific. The next thing you want to do is measurable. Well, how do you know if the goal is met? Will you use formal assessment with the children, or and what would that look like? Maybe you'll use informal assessment, depending on what assessment tools that you want to use to measure it. It could look differently. Well, the next thing is attainable. You want to consider developmentally appropriate practices. The individual child and typical development, is your goal a challenge, but still possible for the child to achieve? That is something that you really want to consider when writing your SMART goals and using your SMART goals. The last two things, once again, is it realistic? The individual child and typical development. You want to look at benchmarks of outcome frameworks for children in different ages. Is your goal realistic and within the children's reach? You want to make sure it's difficult, but not too difficult where it becomes not appropriate, a developmentally appropriate activity. And then last thing is, when will this be reached? So consider a timeline. Will it be reached in a week, a month, a semester, a year? A lot of times when I've been teaching this class, I see a lot of students miss the timely part of when will this be reached. I know for myself as a teacher, it's something that, you know, children develop at different ages and stages. So, you know, I don't really put a timeline on it, but you want to consider a timeline. You want to see that growth, if there has been any growth or if there has been, you know, regression. I think it's really, really important to track that kind of data just to see that. Now, rating learning objectives and SMART goals, I also kind of piggyback on what you guys are doing is the example comprehensive lesson plan that you will be doing this week. So throughout the course, you will be creating a comprehensive lesson plan. Each week's assignment should build on your assignment from the previous week. Each week you will be provided a template to complete. One important thing you really want to note, the written assignment this week is an observation of a child. You will base your lesson plan on the child you observed and create a lesson plan to help the child improve in one area where they need growth. So I created a lesson plan and using the SMART goals of my daughter last year because she was having trouble time at mealtime and mealtime routine. Basically, when you're completing this, you want to make sure of a couple things. You want to make sure that you don't have the actual child's name. You want to make sure you have the child's initials. And then a little bit more going on with the lesson objectives that should be SMART. You want to talk a little bit about basically, so when you have your lesson objective goals that are right here, you want to make sure is what do you want specifically for the child master. And then on the right-hand side over here, basically you're asking the question, how will the activity promote learning and growth in the domain to master the goal that you set out for them? Please note that it should start with a verb. I did make specific objective goals based on mealtime. So I just want to go over it real quick. So basically you want to use a verb on all of these because they are objectives. So uses, I could share. My daughter's name is Annika. So what I set out for her is uses hand-eye coordination when participating in routines, such as carrying food, eating with silverware, drinking out of a cup, pouring liquid into a cup, and eating with fingers. If you notice with that, it's SMART because it's really, really specific. And I'm not just saying, oh, she's eating. I'm saying what she's eating, what she's drinking out of a cup, pouring into a cup, and eating with fingers. I'm really, really, really specific at what I'm saying. And measurable, is it measured? Well, how do we know the goal is being met? Well, can she do these things is the question. And that's just by pure observation. So basically, is it attainable? Is it realistic? Kind of goes hand in hand. Is it developmentally appropriate but yet challengeable? Yes. And when do you want us, and when should we have this completed? When do we want her to complete this? So basically, you know, I mean, this is what an objective, a SMART objective looks like because it's very specific, it's measurable, and it's attainable, it's realistic, and it's timely. The other question is, well, how will we get there? What are the activities? What will we do in order for us to have Annika achieve this objective? So over here, there's different things. For physical, I said providing opportunities to have Annika use forks, spoons, eat with fingers, smelling and touching food, pour water into a cup, drink water from a cup, carry food, and pass food will help strengthen her motor skills and hand-eye coordination. So basically, I have specifically what I want her to do, and this is how she will get there by doing it. I hope that makes sense. And then, as you continue, there are identifies different foods in correlation and shapes during mealtime. And basically, I want her to identify food in correlation to shapes, colors, and quantity during mealtime, and then identify the foods by their shape and colors. One thing, an apple is a red circle, something to that extent. So I hope that makes sense, Kayla. Do you understand the example comprehensive lesson plan and what I'm looking for?
Yeah, I guess my only question would be, can I do mine like based on just like, like the individual, but can I have her like learn how to zip her coat? Is that something that's considered one or not?
Yeah, it's really specific. I mean, yeah, it's really specific. When you're doing that, you want to make sure to have her, when you're using these objectives, adverbs, you want to make sure that you start with a verb. Uses fingers to zip coat or something to that extent, and then you want over here with the physical perceptual central thing, what activities are you going to do for getting that, strengthening her fine motor skills? It might be playing with melting beads, just different activities that you can do to strengthen that skill. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
So, basically you have it perfect of what you want the goal is, but then you want to provide in different, not just physical, but intellectual, language, social, emotional. I mean, language, it could be different things. Seeks information in medium words by asking questions. Zipper, different things. So yeah. And if you don't know, I mean, I could give you more specific examples, but I would use this kind of as your guideline of what you should do and how you should do it. Now, it doesn't need to be exact, but, it's something that you could use for your reference. Do you have any other questions?
No.
All right, you're seeing that there's no other questions. That does complete the end of the live group session. Kayla, since you joined in, you will receive full credit. Thank you for participating. And just remember, your discussion posts are due tonight at 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you guys have any questions about this live session or with anything with the course in general, please contact me. Text me. Usually get back quicker on text than I do with email, just because a lot of times I'm in meetings and I can't answer my phone. So yeah, other than that, there's nothing that you have to do besides make sure that it's submitted to me by your written responses if you're viewing this online by 11:59 p.m. Central Standard Time on Sunday. And you will receive full credit. So thank you for joining and have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Thanks.